My mother paid for me and my wife's wedding photos as a gift and then tried to use it as leverage to see them before us. This is long, so I apologize. So my wife and I are young and didn't have much money, so we asked our respective parents to help as much as they could. Her parents, who are amazing people, helped way more than we could have ever asked and never asked for anything in return. They actually were surprised that my wife was able to pull off as much as she did with the small amount we had. My dad had recently been through a terrible divorce, a long story for another day, and had moved to a new place. I didn't feel comfortable asking him for money, so the majority of the load was left to my mother and stepfather. One thing about my mother is nothing is ever simply a gift with her. Everything comes with a twist. You just never know when she will use it against you. When we mentioned that we needed help, of course she was more than happy to help. Her gift to us was to pick whatever photographer we wanted, no matter the price. We happily accept and thank them both. Fast forward several months later, the wedding is finished and we are barely a month into our marriage. A little more background about the story. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was in the late stages of dementia. He no longer recognized anyone, believed his dreams were real, and never really answered with anything much more than the occasional yeah to anything he was asked. It was a rough time watching him turn into this. Of course my mother refused to believe he didn't know who she was or who I was, and regularly told us that we were wrong when we would try to convince her he was absent mentally. So the wedding is done and we are waiting for the pictures, all 699 of them, occasionally in contact with the photographer to check in and see how things are progressing. It was always friendly conversation. One day my wife receives a concerning email from the photographer asking us to please have my mom stop harassing her for pictures. Confused by this new information, we ask her what she is talking about. According to the photographer, my mother had been emailing and texting her multiple times throughout the week asking for any pictures that she had finished without telling either me or my wife. She was trying to see pictures from our wedding before US. Of course I immediately call her. I will admit I was angry and I went about it in a way I should not have, but I also feel justified. So I call her and confront her about not only how she was treating the photographer, but also about sneaking behind our back to get pictures before we do. Instead of owning up to her mistakes, she tried the power move, thinking I would back down because she is my mother after all. She stated to me with complete sincerity in her voice that since she paid for the pictures she should be able to see them when she wanted. Of course I lost it, not so politely reminding her that it was a gift to us from her and my stepdad, and that if she intended to act this way she should have just found her own photographer. My wife researched for days to find the perfect person. When she realized the power move wasn't going to work, she turned to guilt, bringing in my grandfather. This of course angered me even more. She said that she wanted the photos so she could take them to show them to my grandfather, and that it was wrong of me to deny him seeing these pictures before he passed. At this point I had made my mind up, and out of pure disbelief I had nothing to say, so I quietly informed her that she would receive the pictures when me and my wife felt comfortable showing her, and that she need to stop harassing the photographer or none of us will get pictures. To this day she has not received the pictures. The most surprising part is that she hasn't even asked for them. Not too long ago I asked my stepdad why. He was clueless that all of this was happening, and he said she was still trying. Make me feel guilty about how I talked to her. That's is my mother, ladies and gentlemen. Always the master manipulator. Okay, this is better off in the r/just normal sub, which I browse for Schadenfreude. I'll admit. But one lesson I've learned from the horror stories is that you should never take money from anyone for your wedding, because they will use it as leverage. I never realized how great my parents were until I saw so many train wreck families. ESP Online. You guy use Schadenfreude in English? We don't have our own word for it, so we borrowed the German. It's how English works. We like words from other languages and add that to the horde of fun words. English doesn't borrow from other languages. English follows other languages down dark alleys, knocks them over, and goes through their pockets for loose vocabulary. James the 500th. Nickel. I love this, and am definitely sharing it with my writer nerd friends. Never accept another gift from her, because there will always be strings attached. I didn't know that my mother had another sister. Sucks to be us sometimes. Right? I didn't know my aunt had any siblings until now. Not even your mom? The amount of pictures there were was nice. It's crazy to me how much abuse you people will put up with hoping a parent like that will change. Never expect her to change. She's my mother. I'm stuck with her no matter what. R/Ray said narcissists would say otherwise, my man. You are not obligated to be her toy, to try and manipulate at all for the rest of your life. She isn't always like this. We have a fairly stable relationship. She just sometimes needs to be reminded I'm not a child anymore. I think she forgets that sometimes. Well, I hope it works out for you, man. That's sick. Both my mother and brother are like that, and I'm at this point in my life where I would rather starve or die than accept anything. People like that don't do things for another person, they do it to feel better about themselves or get their way. Tell your stepdad to tell your mom that it will be a cold day in hell before I feel sorry. Classic narcissistic behavior. My personal opinion is, let her, as long as she didn't try anything funny with them. It is such a minor thing that I believe there is no point arguing over. A lot of the times, when you look at it in isolation, you may go, what's the big deal? The issue is she didn't go to them first asking if she could contact their photographer about their pictures from their wedding. What if there were pictures the bride and groom didn't want to share with others, etc. It's up to them to decide what they share and don't. A lot of mothers and Mill have a hard time with weddings, as they realize, or not, their kids now have their own families and they are not part of their nuclear family. Before that they had a more central role in their kids' lives and struggle with respecting their kids, their spouses and their privacy as adults. P.S. If you're getting married soon and would appreciate any financial help, ask them to just give you a check for whatever amount they feel comfortable with that you'll put towards your wedding. Anytime they say I'll pay for this or that, they feel they have control over that one thing they paid for. In our case it was the alcohol. We told our parents no need to help. We have saved money for our wedding. My ILs insisted on paying the bar tab and rehearsal dinner. Guess who called the caterer trying to change our bar menu that we had customized months ago without telling us? My parents just gave a check and said do with it what you please, and we didn't have any issues. I can just laugh on you, mum XD. I can relate to this on a deeply personal level. My mother was a mostly loving person with a lot of flaws. One of them being that she'd often weaponize acts of seeming kindness or generosity to maintain control over me. I never knew exactly when or how something seemingly innocuous was going to be used against me. I'm an only child, and she was a single mother, so I didn't have anyone else to go to when I needed help. And it took me a while to get my feet fully underneath me when I moved out for college and began to build my own life. She would offer to help in small ways, like pay for my cell phone, but then shut my phone off if I didn't answer her calls right away, even if I was on the clock at work, or if I had the nerve to hang up on her when she'd get angry about some random thing and tear into me and yell for an hour. Not exaggerating, she would keep me on the phone for hours if I let her. When I lived in her house, I had no choice but to endure her angry outbursts and verbal abuse. But now, 300 miles away, I could just hang up. So I learned quickly that paying for my phone wasn't a kindness at all, it was a way to hold me hostage. She knew I needed a working phone, so my employer could reach me for on-call shifts. So as soon as I could afford to, I took the bill on myself and slowly began to politely reject offers of help. Our relationship has greatly improved over the years as I've become entirely self-sufficient and successful, because she has nothing left to leverage over me. But I'm still careful not to put myself in situations where she can hold me hostage. Growing up, anything she'd ever done for me my whole life had been constantly leveraged against me. The master of martyrdom and guilt trips. She's got a victim complex and would often try to make me or others in her life look like bad guys who were using and abusing her. It's taken me years and years to process and unpack the abuse I endured. She's not a bad person at heart, just very damaged from her own past traumas and unable to see what she's doing. Sorry you had to deal with that. Opus. It's wildly inappropriate for her to harass your photographer. to leverage her gift to you to gain control over your photos, and to weaponize your grandfather's illness to guilt trip you into giving her what she wants. As you become more able to pay your own way in the world, you'll gain the power to set boundaries she'll have no choice but to respect. Congrats on your wedding. Op, if you ever think about having kids, deny her the right to see them. If she tries to power move you again, remind her that it's for her own good. Are you my brother? I'm sure we have the same mother. Using the dying father was the move of a selfish person, but no harm was done. It sounds as if you had already learned to expect things like that from her. Let's say that she actually did get the pictures first and saw them before you. What's the result? Does it somehow ruin your enjoyment when you get to see them? Does it make the memory of the wedding worse? Of course not. It should just be something that you and your wife laugh about whenever the pictures remind you of how ridiculous your mother is. So she wanted to see them first. What difference does it make? It sounds as if you had a really nice wedding and you're happily married. You're far too upset over the idea that someone else would see some pictures before you. Focus on things that matter. The pictures are not that important and definitely not worth fighting over. It's not about the pictures. It's about the fact that she tried going behind our back, and then when she got caught she used her dying father as an excuse for doing it, as well as using a gift to get what she wants. I so understand your feelings about this. It's so exhausting to deal with a parent/aisles like that where they try to control everything. When called out they go to gaslighting and make themselves the victims, etc. Stay strong for yourself and your spouse. An internet stranger feels your pain. Is there something I'm missing? I wasn't aware that being the first people to look at wedding pictures was such a big deal. Just let her see them if she wants them so much. It seems what you are missing is a normal human experience. Are you a robot? I really don't get how people accept money from their parents and then are frustrated by parents' behavior. Just don't take money from your parents. I get it, then maybe you could not have had as nice of a wedding, but so what? Lol, you said master manipulator boo, it seems to not be working. Yeah, I figured it'd end the post with a little cheeky sarcasm. Removed. What the actual duck? Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.